Thank you for your invitation to the conference on the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, an event of historic consequence, not only for Berlin and Germany, but for Europe as a whole. The Berlin Wall was preceded by a much bigger tragedy, the Second World War, the culmination point of which, especially for civil victims, was Auschwitz and Holocaust. I appreciate that during this conference there is room for the archaeology of the Berlin Wall, of which Auschwitz was a predominant symbol. This is what connects our histories and our geographies. It is important that we remember history of our countries, not only because of the facts from the past, but to understand mankind, the identity of mankind, and to build references to threats and challenges, and to reflect on our contemporary active responsibility for the world. What shall I do?
That's the one. One of the arrow keys probably?
I just need to put the second picture.
One of the arrow keys you can there? That's for it. So, every computer's a little bit different. Here you go. The arrow keys.
Okay, thank you. What connects our topics is the commemoration, which is very important for younger generations and for the future. I would like to tell you today about our new way of thinking about commemoration and remembrance, which created a new word, Diplomacy of Remembrance. And this is the subject of which I want to give you our ideas and conception. But I will start with a short mentioning of the history of Holocaust. Konzentrationslager Auschwitz, or the Auschwitz concentration camp, was established by German Nazis on the outskirts of the town of Oświęcim, renamed Auschwitz after its incorporation into the Third Reich, and providing the name for the camp. The Nazi German Auschwitz concentration camp was set up in 1940 for Polish political prisoners and began to function also as an extermination camp center for the Jews in 1942. Due to these two roles and the predominant number of Jews and Poles in the general number of victims of the camp, its history may be divided into two periods. June 1940 till the middle of 1942, when most of those deported and killed there were Poles, and from the middle 1942 till 1944, when most of those deported and killed there were Jews. Auschwitz had the function of the primary Nazi extermination center for Jews from European countries occupied by Third Reich or dominated by its allies. Those incarcerated and murdered in the camp included also the Roma, Soviet prisoners of war, and prisoners of more than 20 nationalities. At the end of the war, the SS men, in an attempt to cover up the traces of their crimes, began dismantling and destroying the gas chambers, crematoria, and other facilities, as well as burning documents. Prisoners capable of walking were evacuated deep into the Reich. Those who remained in the Nazi German concentration and extermination camp were liberated by soldiers of the Red Army on the 27th of January 1945. In this camp, during the Second World War, there were 900,000 Jews murdered in the gas chambers immediately after the arrival at the camp, and of the 400,000 prisoners registered in the camp, 200,000 people died there. They included 100,000 Jews, 70,000 Poles, 21,000 Roma, 14,000 Soviet prisoners of war, and more than 10,000 prisoners of other nationalities. These are over 1 million individual tragedies. The Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum was established in the area of the former concentration camp only 2 years after the war, in 1947 on the initiative of former prisoners of Auschwitz. The site was included in the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1979. The contemporary memorial site includes, among others, the collections, archives, conservation labors. It is the research, education, and publishing center. It is the best preserved evidence of the greatest fall of mankind and an enormous tragedy in the history of Europe. This is a symbol of the whole Shoah history and symbol and place of genocide in the world. The main goal of the museum nowadays is to protect and conserve camp relics and to keep the authenticity and the trust of the biggest concentration and extermination camp. The museum disposes of more than 100,000 objects and archival items, 150 buildings and approximately 300 ruins, including the remains of 4 gas chambers and crematoria in Birkenau, and almost 4,000 concrete posts and many other elements. They are carried by a highly qualified conservators, having very modern laboratories. The objects which the museum possesses are mostly personal possessions brought by deportees, like suitcases, eyeglasses, toothbrushes, shoes. These are also objects connected with the life of prisoners in the camp, like prisoners' spoons, bowls, clothes. Some camp items like soup cauldron, prisoners' banks, camp registry cards. Items connected with the extermination process like elements of crematorium oven, gas chamber doors, Zyklon B cans. The museum's educational mission is realized by the International Center for Education about Auschwitz and the Holocaust, set up by the Polish government on the initiative of the survivors. Only at the Auschwitz Memorial it is authentically possible not only learn about the facts of the concentration camp, but also to personally see the evidence of the extermination. The center organizes also postgraduate studies, seminars, conferences, stays and study trips, workshops for teachers and students from all over the world. The museum possesses a huge collection of art connected with the Auschwitz camp, which is very unique. The archive collection includes tens of thousands of camp documents, almost 40,000 negatives of photographs of newly registered prisoners, as well as many family photos of Jews deported to Auschwitz for extermination. After this historical introduction and the presentation of the present activities of the memorial, I would like to concentrate on the Diplomacy of Remembrance. The mission of Diplomacy of Remembrance at the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial is to improve knowledge about Auschwitz and the Holocaust as a warning to the contemporary world. We operate in the fields of culture, art, protection of freedom, human rights. Together we believe that we can counteract racism, hatred, and intolerance and participate in building responsible, committed, conscious, and engaged societies. To pass a message of survivors is indirectly a way to prevent anti-Semitic, racistic, intolerant, and violent behavior. We still have in Europe the Holocaust denial, anti-Semitism is growing, discrimination is growing. There was a genocide on a Muslim Rohingya in Burma just 2 years ago. The reaction in the world was nearly none. This is such a perspective that 0.3% of the global population had visited Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial in the 21st century. We might be very proud, in fact, of the number of visitors. no other museum in Poland has so many visitors. But still there are many people who never visited the place and who will never come to visit Auschwitz. As a museum, we are not able to reach millions of people around the world, so we will convey our message outside. This is why we pay attention on building an extensive international network of people engaged in promoting the history and commemoration with a goal to create more responsibility and awareness. We are searching for active people and partners, institutional partners, NGO partners, individual people, also in a smallest country, in a smallest town, in any country. Through them we could achieve the local society and bring there some educational projects. This graph presents the number of visitors in the last 18 years. As you see, the number is growing every year. In 2016, we reached over 2 million visitors. Most of the visitors are accompanied by the qualified educators in already 21 languages. The growing number of visitors, although the time is moving us away from the history of Auschwitz, means for us that the meaning of the memorial is growing. This graph presents the number of visitors from each continent. Our visitors are coming from all over the world, and many of them are asking the question, what is my responsibility today? What can I do for the memorial? It means there is a very high potential for an international cooperation. Visitors by country, which is probably clear. Poland is on the first position because of the history, because of the distance of the memorial, because of the teaching program at school. United Kingdom, the second position, United States, Germany on the sixth position. But unfortunately, this is made by numbers and not percentual. Yes. Right. So the Diplomacy of Remembrance, we want to build through international cooperation, built on local activists. We want to reach people from many countries. We want to reach people or institutions who are ready to engage into this subject, who sees the importance of this topic. And we also want to appoint the honorary ambassadors and honorary consuls of the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial. On the 27th of January 2020, we will celebrate the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Nazi German concentration and extermination camp. We need to take into account that this is probably going to be the last round anniversary with participation of the witnesses of Auschwitz. This is also a challenge for a commemoration and for remembrance. It is our responsibility towards the victims and the survivors to keep educational efforts alive and to remember. For the cooperation with international partners, the museum offers the know-how, the knowledge, the materials. We offer educative exhibitions, teaching materials. We offer large collection of books and publications of memoirs of the survivors and research studies in different languages. We offer a huge archive, thousands of photographies, and the consultation of our historians, the best specialists of Holocaust topic. We can organize different kinds of workshops for various purposes and all kinds of groups of people. We can together prepare some new projects. We are open for volunteers. We have already about 300 volunteers a year. As an example, just a few weeks ago, we opened an exhibition in Spain, in Guernica, about Auschwitz. And this exhibition, this educational exhibition, is of course connected with some workshops for teachers and for students. And this exhibition will be presented in many other cities of Spain in the next year. In listening to the call of the survivors, we invite you to actively participate in the activities of the international community fostering the memory of the extermination of European Jews, the tragedy of the Poles, Roma, Soviet prisoners of war, and other groups of victims. The message of survivors is an obligation for all of us not to stay passive towards different kinds of tragedies, aggressions, racism, genocides, which are happening next to us. I would like to invite you again to get engaged in the Diplomacy of Remembrance so we can together commemorate the victims and the survivors of the Holocaust and prevent further violence and racism in the world. We must remember the words of the Auschwitz survivor and Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel, never be indifferent. Thank you very much. Thank you.
About the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Center and also what you do. It's really interesting, I think. So, do we have any questions from the audience?
Good evening. My name is Daniel. I'm really impressed by your presentation, and this is sounding very new to me. The Diplomacy of Remembrance. But I find a lot of connection with it because in Africa, I come from Nigeria, by the way. Nigeria fought a very bitter civil war for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the war, the government of the day said there's no victor, no vanquished. But then you discover that like you have the Holocaust denial, you also have the massacre denial. And now that you're trying to build a network of those who are involved in preserving these memorials, and I know that this issue of massacre denial is not only in Nigeria, but in many countries of Africa and some other continents. How do you intend to establish this network where the government of the day sees such movement as anti-government? What advice do you give to people who are willing to get involved in that network?
In that network of Diplomacy of Remembrance?
Yes. Thank you.
We are, it's a quite new word, Diplomacy of Remembrance. We found it in our museum. We thought this is a correct name for this art of activity, and we are very open for cooperation with all countries. So you can contact us. We can talk about detailed cooperation. We are trying to reach through our cooperation. We are trying to reach different NGOs in the world, individual people, institutions. So this might be the way to find a cooperation. Yes.
Do we have any other questions or remarks that this discussion brought up? Any thoughts?
Hello, thank you very much for your presentation. I just saw recently the movie The Schindler's List, and I was particularly hit about the way the story was told, because I thought I knew everything about what happened, but I found there was a new perspective inside the movie. So I was wondering how you could create create new stories of what happened, or which kinds of stories would you like to disseminate?
I'm not sure if I understand correct your question. There are lots of stories from Auschwitz, which are very, very important and which are very moving, and probably each of the story is worth a movie. But perhaps can you explain more in detail what was your question?
It was not just a question, it was just more a comment. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we have one more question here.
You're doing great and important job. I have two questions. First of all, as I saw your target group, as we can call people who are coming there, it's simple people. I mean, did you try to bring them some officials, I can not say decision makers, but people who can have more interfere to the process than such things can not more, what you had this slogan, huh? Not happen more. I mean, members of parliament, or you can do some maybe forum or congress there, like we have here for like 30 years anniversary of fall, or someone. It was happened maybe 50 or maybe something like 60 years ago. First question. And second, Auschwitz, it's not just single one independent place. It's part of system. What I was reporter in one program by American Jewish Committee. There are a lot of memorials. For example, memorial in Washington. It's huge. Memorial of Shoah, Holocaust in Los Angeles, and many other places. Do you have some relations there? Are you coordinating your activity with them? For example, Spielberg Foundation in the Universal Picture, the middle place, they have a lot of testimonies of survivors there. Hundred thousands. Do you have also cooperation with them? Thank you.
Yes, we do have cooperation with many institutions in the world, with universities, with museums or organizations who are connected in any way with Second World War. We do cooperate with Holocaust Museum in Washington. We do cooperate with Spielberg Foundation, with Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, and with many others institutions. And this is very important for us. And we, as this place, the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial, is also it's the biggest. It was the biggest concentration and extermination camp, and it is also nowadays very important institution in this topic. So we do cooperate with many institutions, and we are searching for for new cooperations, and we want to engage people into this diplomacy of remembrance. We want to engage people who are who will be probably new in this topic, but who understands the importance of it, and who would be ready to organize some educative projects. As I mentioned, we have many educative exhibitions in many languages. We have books, memoirs. We have photographies. So we can offer a lot, and we want to find people around the world to help us be present with our concept around the world. We want to reach people who probably will never visit, let's say, Holocaust Museum in Washington, because they live somewhere in a small town far away from Washington. But so that is the idea, that we reach also just let's say local activists, yes, who doesn't have to be very close with this topic. They can start. They can see the importance of it and start cooperating with us. But on the other hand, we want to find, and we started already, some honorary ambassadors and honorary consuls in each country, step by step, of course. And this should be people who are very involved in the Holocaust subject, who already have many contacts and yes, knows the history very well. So this is hopefully my answer on the second question. And the first question was, yes, there are many memorials. There are many memorials in. No, what was the first question?
Why you don't do such presentations in there? For example, it will be 80 years of anniversary or something like this, and you can invite decision makers. I mean,
yes.
Members of parliament, people, lawyers,
yes.
judges, who can be not responsible, but who can stop this process if it will start in some country.
We, as a Diplomacy of Remembrance, we are quite a new department in the museum, so we are planning to organize a conference and a second conference, so we will invite decision makers also for a conference at our place. But as a museum, there are conferences, educative conferences with many important guests from different countries. So we are active also in the memorial directly.
I will come.
Okay, I hope so.
I guess as I've been sitting here, I've just been thinking about the Cambodian killing fields, Rwanda, yes. Other places where there have been mass massacres. So in terms of diplomacy, this is a horrible way to say it. You have a lot of partners, yes. Many partners. And it strikes me that as a true diplomatic movement, this notion of remembrance means reaching out to different kinds of situations, not just the Holocaust itself, but for Auschwitz to take a lead on that the concepts behind it get shared with different countries and different kinds of situations, not just the particulars of that Holocaust.
That's true. I fully agree with you. It is the problem is bigger, and we don't want to concentrate only on Holocaust and on Auschwitz. We are open for for this cooperation with different countries and different histories, tragic histories. So you are right.
Final question, please.
Yeah, inspired by our American friend and also other comments, I would like to comment on this as well, because I've been there to Auschwitz-Birkenau. It's huge. It's immensely huge. And it's you can see during the presentation and on the spot, you don't feel comfortable. You're not in a comfortable position. It's not a museum that much more than 0.3% of population would go, because it makes you feel bad. A lot of people don't go there because they know they will feel super bad. The environment is super heavy, and just you don't feel like taking selfies or taking pictures everywhere. You don't feel like that. You just know, you just go there to learn and like learn the essence of humans. And also when you go there, you just feel the complete absence of love, because all of this, such a huge amount of technology and materials, resources, money, and a huge railway, a huge station, all for the practice of hatred. And that's all. And it's very touching. So maybe that will be just my comment about it. Is I now understand your position. Like it's very delicate issue. So it's not treated like, okay, let's go for promotions or anniversary. It's very, very touching. You must be very careful in conveying the message.
Thank you for your comment. Yes.